Billions and billions of years ago, I did a video about the 3M bookshelf series. I'm just kidding, I'm not Carl Sagan and it definitely wasn't billions of years ago, but a lot has definitely happened since I made the last one. I even have a few more to my collection, which I wanted to show off today. Much like last time, I'm gonna do an overview of the boxes, as well as give the basic rules of how each game works. Start with Feudal, which I actually recorded an entire game of back in that far-off epoch. The game of Siege and Conquest. This is a 67 version. So, unfortunately, the cover for the top here is missing, and that's where the instructions would have been. However, I was able to make do with other means. The board itself is near identical to what you would find with Twixt. In fact, they just painted it with different colors. Slide out this little area here, and this is where all the pieces are. Now, this is the thing I find so crazy, is that even though these were mass-produced, there's honestly quite a lot of detail in these little pieces. The one I always like to show the most is the king. Which, I mean, you can even see his face, you can see a coat of arms, you can even see there's a little decal on the shield. While all the colors look exactly the same, it's just nuts that they had this much detail all the way back then. And then on the back is the optimal play setup. And part of me does kind of wonder if maybe they went to a castle in, say, Scotland to be able to take this picture. But all the same, imagine being the person that had to take this picture. One of the things I wonder if maybe this picture took forever to take, because look at how the candle is just melting right all over the candle holder. And even here, there's another brief description of the game. Next one I picked up is Hybrid, which is actually in really good shape. So we slide it out, open it up, and it's a little discombobulated, but the main thing you'll notice is that it's very similar money to what was in Acquire. However, the denominations are a little different, like the rip-off Thomas Jefferson. And even right here, you got a completely new face. I would say Sir Isaac Newton, but he wasn't a U.S. president. Maybe Martin Van Buren? Feel free to chime in the comments who you think this is supposed to be. So we're going to move some of this around real quick. Oh, you still got FDR on the 100. You see that there are 2 dice. These dice, there's no replacing them because of how special they are. You got this one, which is 50, 100, 25, and 50, which corresponds to all 4 corners on the board here. The basic idea is that the auctioneer would put something up for grabs. The auctioneer would then roll the dice. The first one would determine its value, which is written on the corresponding sides. And it's nice that it's up and down. And then each person would have to bid for it. The basic goal of the game is to be able to have the most money at the end. And the best way to do that is that you got different categories. So for instance, C is one category, and 4 means that there's 4 of them. Collect all 4. And then you'll get the most money out of it. Very simple premise. A lot of people tell me it's a lot like Bidiots, but I have never played it. How it's supposed to work is that these little slots is where the money goes. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the last video, but I love how the inside of the box is the instruction manual for a few of these. It's environmental, and it saves on space. However, I don't think you're going to be fitting the instructions of Betrayal on Haunted Hill on the back of the box anytime soon. So, go to the side. You can see this is the 60s era from the logo, as well as just that rough leather-like exterior. Flip it over to the back. And, yeah, I'd say this picture is very appropriate. It looks like a very swanky art gallery waiting room. And they're playing this game to pass the time until the next auction. And I gotta love that the money in the picture here is the same money as in the game. Acquire, for some odd reason, the money is completely different in the picture. This one is unfortunately a much later entry, and for all the griping I was saying about how stocks and bonds was probably going to be too complicated, I found it to not be that bad. As you can see, it's completely flat. You got these flower shapes from the older version. And you look at the date right here, 1974, as opposed to the 60s. You gotta love the high-rise boardroom aesthetic. And I find it quite fascinating that this is supposed to fold. The version I have, unfortunately, has been used up so many times that it's just ripped right down the middle. And you can really tell this is from a different time because everyone has an ashtray in front of their chair. So, flip it open. Once again, even the inside is dull looking. Now this is interesting. Here you got like the basics of the back of the box. But if you want the instructions, that is a separate point right here. You could tell that this was probably played a lot because this sheet seems kind of skinny. Either that or maybe it was just skinny to begin with. But each player gets a sheet to be able to mark down the winnings and losses along the way. There is a black crayon that was supposed to come with this, and that is how you mark the earnings for each company. There's a lot to this game, but playing it isn't really all that difficult. So like I said, rip down the middle. Basic idea is you got a bunch of different stocks you can buy. Unfortunately, there's no money in this version, so you have those little reference sheets to be able to count and keep track of how much money you got. You got a little slider here. Each card determines how the market is going to be. So you got bull or bear. So you got the bear side and you got the bull side. Now for those of you that don't know, a bull market is a good one and a bear market is bad. Now the way I always remembered it is that the bear is pulling down on the market while the bull is kicking it up into the air with its horns. Well, I guess that wouldn't be kicking, that'd be more like goring it, I guess. But I digress. Remember there was a few comments about me wanting to try to get into this one. Orari. I have a feeling I am not pronouncing that one correctly. This is a 62, so you can see the nice rough texture. And dang. I love this ancient Egyptian look that this woman is going for. And at the top here is trying to look like it's written in Arabic. But then again, you got Afro-Asian. I'm not sure how many times that's ever been used throughout history. You flip it over to the back, and it's rather interesting. Everybody looks like they're getting lemonade. You got some fruit with maybe a little bit of tea. And it looks like it's being played on a really low table, as if you're supposed to kneel on these pillows in order to play the game. Now this is rather fascinating, as you see this one folds in half down the middle. There's a good reason for this, because that's the way it opens up. Now this I find particularly fascinating. It is the catalog for all the bookshelf games. So I'm just going to go through them real quick. So, Orari, that's what we've got. I got Twixt, got Jumpin', Flounder, we'll get to that one later. Kinto. We'll get to that one later. And we flip it over for some more. Stocks and bonds. That's what the real version looks like rather than the 80s re-release. And acquire. According to this, I have acquired them all. Yeah, no, lame joke, but come on, I just had to go for the low-hanging fruit. And what's also fun is this little slip of paper. You run out of parts, you could just simply call to get them replaced. However, I don't think if you were to send cash to this location, they're actually going to give you that anymore. Now, much like foil, this may look like stone, but it's plastic. Now, inside these little bags, you got two different things. You got marbles. These are used to say which player owns which area. There's 4 different colored marbles in total, so you can have up to 4 players. And it's a weird thing to comment on, but I love the texture of this bag. It's very smooth. Now the other bag here, I should probably mention this before I open the bag. This game is played in a very similar vein to Mancala. The idea that you got these pits, and inside the pits are little stones, which you try to move around. And in your area, you want to have the most stones captured, which goes into one of these 4 little piles. This is probably the thing I find particularly fascinating, is the pebbles of this game. They look like they went to a local riverbed and they picked these up. Which I feel like if this game were to come out today, it'd be painted glass or something, but no, these are real smooth rocks. The only problem is they vary in size, so it's kind of hard to pick them up and move them around. Which I feel like if this game were to come out today, it'd be painted glass or something, but no, these are real smooth rocks. The only problem is they vary in size, so it's kind of hard to pick them up and move them around. And at the same time, it feels very authentic to how the original version of this game may have been played by the people of 3,500 years ago. Next, we move on to Flounder, which you can just tell which era this game came out in just by how everybody is dressed, as well as the illustration style. And there you have the date of 1962. We go around. As far as I can tell, this is basically the same color that is in Acquire. See the title. And the back. Well, I find it quite fascinating that this one is being played poolside. And much like Orari, I gotta love how there's 3 drinks on the table. So the basic premise of this one is it's a fast-paced word game. So there is a bunch of letter tiles. You got a score sheet, as well as dice to dictate how long a word has to be for that round. Now you'll see here that each player has their own little trough. So it's kind of nuts that you can have up to 6 people. This is kind of the annoying thing though. This is mostly complete. I got the score sheet, I got the letters, and I got the dice, but unfortunately I do not have the bell that the players would try to race for after they think they got the most amount of words possible. And as you can tell by the picture, it would be like one of those concierge bells. Maybe I'll be able to find a replacement for it someday. But then again, I'm not all that good at word games. And the last one, we have Kinto, as I mentioned we were going to get to before. This is a rather fascinating one. The basic premise is it's Scrabble, but you're given numbers. And you want to pick numbers that are multiples of 5. So 5, 10, and no more than 30. You gotta like how it has this Greek philosophers area. Turn it around, and it very much fits with that same setting. This has got to be one of the weirdest stoves I have ever seen, but maybe that was quite popular back in Grecian times. And you can see on the board, the basic numbers as well as how the game would go. So you got mixed nuts and you got fruit. Doesn't have those delicious crackers like on the Twixt box. Take it out. You can see how good a shape this one is in, and I'm having a hard time taking it out. Let me open it up. And here you see the Scrabble board, except it's being done with numbers. The X is where you start. So it's very basic. You got your score sheet, and you got your numbers. I'm gonna guess this was in there by accident. It looks like one of the wooden pieces for Risk. I guess I got a bonus when I bought this one. And that is all the 3M board games that I currently have. Probably one of the things that's fun to mention is that Kinto, Flounder, and Orari, I got all of them at the same place for $3 a piece. That was a fantastic flea market. I just only wish that I could have picked up more, because I do believe there are just a few more that I don't have. But the catalog in this one shows all the ones I have. I remember there was at least one that was about football, and the other, I think it was called Mr. President, which was all about trying to create a presidential campaign. Can only imagine how vicious that would go in this day and age. So yes, that is my 3M board game collection part 2. Maybe sometime in another 5 years I'll be able to have a part 3, but for now, I think this is pretty good. Until next time, keep having fun.